2019 is the year I pledged to play through the Castlevania franchise and record my journey through these vlogs, culminating in one big video review at the end.
Here's the 6th entry of many more to come, covering Super Castlevania 4.
Welcome once more to the Castlevania Diaries, entry number 7 I believe we're at, and today we're going to be talking about Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis. This series is getting super exciting. As I kind of left off on the last episode, I'm getting hooked into this series, and with the completion of Castlevania Bloodlines, the doors have opened up into the Castlevania kingdom, and I am now going to put on the whole fandom outfit. Like, I need to get myself a Castlevania shirt as well. As someone who's never been big into like the whole horror genre, the monster genre and stuff, it's really weird that I'm falling so much into this Castlevania juice, because it's not something I would have ever seen myself really get into, but here we are, 7 games in with about 20 more to go. So when I started this whole quest to play the entire Castlevania franchise and review it at the end, I was kind of expecting that I only needed to play the Castlevania collection, the anniversary collection, and maybe a few more straggler titles, and we'd be done with it. But there's a lot more. I feel like I'm just leaving the tutorial area now that I've completed the 7 games on the collection. I know I'm not talking about Kid Dracula. That's not a Castlevania game. Get out of here. So, Bloodlines was an interesting game. It was definitely one of the easier Castlevania games, which I'm not against. I enjoy, a nice little relaxing stroll of Castlevania. It felt very Sega though. I don't know if you guys know what I mean by that, but I grew up with a Sega Genesis, and I feel like from game to game, there was this certain feel and vibe, like the animations or the graphics or the controls, that gave it a very unique Sega vibe. I don't know if like all the developers used the same development kit or there was like some common element amongst many of these games, but there's just something that feels very familiar about them. Like, I don't know if it's because their sprites were smaller, which made it look like things move faster, but Bloodlines feels very Sega. And this one's very different. Not only is it on Sega, but you've also got more of a modern Castlevania, which gives it a whole different flair. You're exploring all of Europe, which is great because now you're getting all of these different venues, and you're doing weird things that I haven't been doing in Castlevania games so far, like climbing the Tower of Pisa and going into French museums and stuff. It's really different. In terms of the gameplay is pretty similar. I don't like that they took away the mobility of the whip. So I played the whole game with the whip character. I forget his name. Like, you can't whip upwards, you can't whip at a diagonal, and you can't, like, everything you could do in Castlevania 4, they just took away, and you're right back to whipping right and left. Like, what happened? Come on, guys. Now, when you do jump, you can whip at an upward angle of 45 degrees, which is odd, I don't know why, and you can latch onto any ceiling and swing, which is a mechanic they didn't use too much, which I'm happy they kept in there, but I just don't know why they would have taken the up-down and all of that stuff out of it. I do like that in this one they did add the whole like a boosted whip thing where you get like this like sci-fi like blue hue of magic whip energy that it just kills things a lot faster, but then if you get hit you lose it. But thanks to save states I didn't lose it too often. So yeah, I liked all of that. It was a lot easier. Everything was just brighter. I like the graphics. Again, as I said in the last episode, 16-bit era is my era. I feel right at home here. The bosses were pretty good. They felt even better than in Castlevania 4, where I felt that I could actually predict, after a few tries, I could figure out what their movements were. And once everything clicks, it made it easy, which is actually reinforced by your final fight with Death. You actually end up going back and fighting many of the bosses in the game. So the game kind of checks, and I was like, did you really learn how to fight this character without getting hit? I like that. In this case, I liked it. Some games make you fight, like go through a boss run again, and when the game is unfair or feels unfair, it's just not a good time. The music in this game didn't really stand out. I can't recall much about it. The bosses, yeah, I really like the bosses. I like this like female vampire at the end, where at first I didn't know what to do. Like, she puts these orbs and then she just bounces back and forth on each side of the screen and shoots fireballs at you, and you hit her and she doesn't take damage. So I learned very quickly that you actually have to hit her the number of times that So if there's 4 orbs on screen, you have to hit her 4 times, and then before the orbs kind of explode and do their super attack, and then you do damage on her. Very interesting mechanic. I really like that. And, you know, they made it so that you could just do it on time if you went left and right and timed it right. And it was a very rewarding feeling when that clicked and when I could pull it off, that I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I'm smart. I'm a good gamer. So it was a good time there. What else about Castlevania Bloodlines that I like? Everything else, like, I breezed through that quite a bit. Oh, so after I finished the game, there's a second character that you can play with, like a trident. And I was like, all right, let's see what this trident character, I think I played the first level or 2 with him. And holy shit, he's broken. Like, this guy is so overpowered. You can actually, and this makes even less sense. So with the trident, dude, you can harpoon at a 45 up and down. It has the whole mechanics of the Castlevania 4 mechanics. Why couldn't they give that to the whip dude? Like, what happened? So I was actually enjoying the harpoon guy more. And I actually don't know if his length was bigger than the whip, but it felt like I could reach further with it. But that could just be like a visual trick because it looks like a bigger weapon. So I'm happy I did it with the whip character first, because I think I would have had an easier time with the harpoon guy, and I'd rather have the first run be the hardest, and then, you know, at least I know I did the hardest first. Yeah, so otherwise I really did enjoy this. It was like a nice little breather between Castlevanias. I feel it really stands out from the rest of the franchise so far, because it is set in such a different time period, and it's more colorful, and there's just so much different. Oh, another thing that they did in it is, because it was on the Sega Genesis, they were dabbling with like new technology. There's this one boss, it's actually the one at the Tower of Pisa, which they make like the tower rotate, but it's like a 3 kind of dimensional thing. The boss is weird. That just messed with my eyes, and I did not enjoy that boss fight. So I get that, you know, at that time developers were pushing themselves to try and do new things in games, but that was just an unwelcome push. So I wish they hadn't done that. And then there was this, another thing that's great about it being in a modern time, there was a boss that was like a nuts and bolts kind of character, which is something you would never have found in another Castlevania game based in the older centuries. So that was kind of cool to be able to see those sorts of new bosses. But overall, I think I prefer my Castlevania in the more traditional setting that, you know, the Dracula stories are set in. I don't mind the spin-off like Bloodlines once in a while, but let's keep it in the roots that it's based off of. So Bloodlines was good. Now we're going into Rondo of Blood, and I just started Rondo of Blood, and I have to say that we've turned a new corner in this franchise review, because wow, this might be my favorite game. Rondo of Blood is kicking me in the face, but it's a good time. And I have no save states anymore, so I have to change my whole way of approaching and playing the games. The secondary weapon is becoming a lot more critical, but we're going to talk about that in the next Castlevania Diaries once I finish Rondo of Blood. So I'll see you guys next time on the Castlevania Diaries.